everybody was kung fu fighting. If that lyric sparks a memory of after-school television, then you might be one of the ones that grew up watching Kickin' It like me. Oh, that's a lie, actually. I never really watched Kickin' It. Not until I did this retrospective, actually. And I gotta tell you, I'm kind of over the moon for it because it is such a well-written show, like, not only for a sitcom in itself, but the humor is like Nickelodeon pushing their envelopes or Hannah Montana's impressive characterization. Like, this show has everything and more than I didn't expect. It's the Disney XD sitcom that was basically the Karate Kid if it were a TV show and a kid show. It premiered in 2011 and actually ran for 4 seasons, which is so much better than most of the shows on the channel, even shows on Disney Channel themselves. And this was one of the staple shows that really solidified Disney XD working in itself, stopping it from being an utter failure. So let's go into the first season, break down its episodes, deeper meanings and impact. Like, we could compare it to like the classic martial arts tropes that we know and love, like the Karate Kid, like Cobra Kai, or its Disney XD siblings like Zeke and Luther and Lab Rats. And of course, we will relive the funniest, most wasabi-worthy moments that made this show so incredible. So bow down to your sensei and grab some falafels from Bill's. What's up, everybody? It's Johnny 2000 here to dive in to Kickin' It. So when it premiered in 2011, it brought martial arts mania to a new generation. Think of the Karate Kid reimagined for the 2010s, like a ragtag underdog dojo, a cocky rival like the Black Dragons, and a slick martial arts tournament face-off, all tucked carefully into a nice sofa of laughs and slapstick. And it does reference specifically the Karate Kid a lot, like specifically episode 9 is even titled Wax On, Wax Off, which is definitely a nod, and the Black Dragons versus the Wasabi Warriors is definitely a Miyagi-Do versus Cobra Kai vibe, but like in a good way, not in a copying way. But unlike Daniel LaRusso, our hero is not a loner. He's got like a whole crew. Kickin' It follows a tight-knit team of apprentices from Bobby Wasabi Martial Arts Academy. It's a scrappy dojo in a strip mall that's officially the worst in the nationwide chain, which is always a funny way to start a series. We see Jack Brewer, who's played by Leo Howard, and this kid actually had karate training, which is phenomenal. Like, that's all you can ask for in a show, to have somebody that like authentically plays the character, whether it's like physically or mentally. Like, I think this guy was perfect for it. I'm so glad they didn't just get somebody and make them pretend that they knew how to use karate. Like, this guy had experience. Disney XD had commercials. They like really showed off this guy. He is the perfect person to lead the series. He's joined by his diverse friends like Milton, who's this brainy guy, a little sheepish but hilarious. Then they got Jerry, this goofy ladies man, who plays kind of the dumb card a lot, but is really convincing with it. Like, his acting skills are great. And he is the brother to Moises Arias, the guy who played Rico in Hannah Montana. Speaking of Hannah Montana, we got Jason Earls playing the master sensei. His name is Rudy, but like, he was amazing on that show, and I don't know why he was on 2 successful shows right after each other. Like, that's very rare to happen to somebody. It's weird though, because he looks young here, just because I knew him as Jackson, and I was like, I feel like he's like barely older than the kids, but he does play a really mature character, and he does it really well. This guy, Jason Earls, is just such a good actor. Oh, and then there's Eddie, who's kind of like this gentle guy, but they keep making fat jokes at him, and it gets really annoying really quickly. But like, he's very quirky and just wants to have a good time. And then of course we have one female character. It's played by Olivia Holt, and in it, her name is Kim.
Hello, Kim.
She's like a really confident girl that's like kind of an overachiever. Like, she's in the school extracurriculars, she's in this whole dojo. Like, I don't know how this girl makes time in her schedule to do as much as she does. They all have this thing called like the Wasabi Code, and it's basically trying to be a Morse code for like, I don't lie, which is funny because they lie a lot in this show, and that's just not really held on to. The chant, "We swear by the light of the dragon's eye," kind of feels like culty.
We swear by the light of the dragon's eye to be loyal and honest and never say die. Wasabi!
but whatever. It definitely gave Disney one of its most lovable sitcoms. So at the time, it was full of teen adventures like Zeke and Luther and Pair of Kings. The only difference is Kickin' It focused on flying kicks and karate chops, making it a lot more diverse in this group of TV shows. And the martial arts wasn't just cool for the fight scenes, it was like a vehicle for discipline, confidence, friendship, and they'd really tackle it in a impactful way. When even Nickelodeon had super ninjas, Kickin' It gave us our own goofy dojo to root for, with a Disney family-friendly style. But now as young adults, we look back and laugh, because it was a little cheesy, like the slow motion kicks and everything, but the whole point is it's sincerely uplifting. It taught us about loyalty, believing in ourselves, and the falafel jokes just don't stop in this. I don't know how often these kids just sit in this restaurant.
Is it just me, or are these falafel balls greasier than usual?
No, that looks about right.
But there's nostalgic significance, and that's where Johnny 2000 shines, guys. So the pilot episode is called Wasabi Warriors, and it shows us Bobby Wasabi, the dojo, based off the famous karate guy. And it's all glorious. This new kid, Jack, not only is new to the dojo, but is new to the town. Nobody really knows that much about him, which is nice for a pilot, because then obviously everything he does not only impacts the characters around him, but us as an audience. He impresses everybody pretty quickly by defeating a bully in the cold opening, and it was really quick. It sets up Jack as like the skilled but reluctant hero, and he talks about being a skater that doesn't necessarily want to get involved until it's actually important to, like the dojo's future being at stake. Since it's like one of the least impactful dojos, it's definitely going to be shut down, and Sensei Rudy, who is Jason Earls, begs Jack to join the team so they can actually win a tournament and not be shut down, which is a great stake setup. Like, I love that there's that much going on if this one kid doesn't join. It puts like the pressure on him and gives us a chance to like him for taking it. Unless that's a spoiler. I don't know if I spoiled the pilot to this show for you guys. Jack agrees, saying that only if Rudy follows the Wasabi Code of Honor himself, because he didn't get that vibe from him, which is really interesting. Like, this guy definitely represents honor and integrity. Like, the climax even has the Wasabi Warriors band together at a tournament against the rival Black Dragons, kind of like Cobra Kai is in the Karate Kid. When Rudy's desperation leads him to actually like have to bend the truth and break the Wasabi Code, Jack literally quits in protest, but ultimately comes back because he does care about helping his friends and realizes that sometimes it's okay to break a specific code. And he realizes that just because Rudy broke the code doesn't mean that he should break his code, which means he can't abandon his friends, because that would be abandoning the code for him. It's a strong lesson about honor, and like, everybody makes mistakes, but true friends hold each other accountable and forgive, and that starts with a sensei and an apprentice. And it's really sweet. It's like an underdog story, especially as Jack fights with an injury to win the championship for his team. The dojo is saved immediately, and we learn that loyalty to your friends can actually triumph winning. It definitely mirrors the Karate Kid formula, right down to the rival dojo and the high stakes tournament, but it subverts it by making the girl, Kim, a top karate student too. And then she is initially with the Black Dragons, which adds a really good twist immediately, especially since Jack and her definitely have something together. Like, there's a little bit of chemistry, but it's not explored this early. And the fact that they're against each other, it's like, it's a little Romeo and Juliet without getting into it too much. She gets inspired when she learns that their team was cheating. She decides to leave out of integrity. And what's the best place to go? The Bobby Wasabi Dojo. Because that's where Jack is putting the value system over everything they've done before. It was refreshing at the time in 2011 to see a female lead in a martial arts show specifically who isn't just a love interest or sidekick. Like, she actually does hold her own against the guys, gets her own episodes throughout this season, and adds a lot to the Bobby Wasabi Dojo. Meanwhile, having Milton the nerd and Eddie the gentle guy, it's true that anybody can find confidence through martial arts. The show lightly touches on masculinity too, by showing Jack as a cool fighter who's still humble and respectful and not an arrogant jock. Although he is very easily into fighting. I don't know why this show always has so many fighting sequences. Well, I mean, I know why. Obviously, that's the whole point, but it's just, as somebody who doesn't believe in fighting, it's crazy to see them break out this much. Like, I don't know how people don't get suspended or it doesn't end up in a bigger issue that goes beyond school, but that's just the tone of the show, I guess. And this show was actually originally going to be called Wasabi Warriors, just like this pilot episode, which is kind of cool. I like it when they name the pilot after the original show, because then it makes it feel like, oh, there's still a part of that root in the flower. It's interesting lore to note that Jack's grandfather is mentioned as a karate sensei who actually trained Bobby Wasabi himself, which is a nice bit connecting our protagonist to the franchise's fictional martial arts legend. And Jason Earls is definitely a really fun, goofy guy that adds so much of lightness to its stories, making it the sitcom it needs to be. The episode after it is called Fat Chance, and it's definitely more about acceptance, but it's like got this sumo wrestling theme to it. It puts a spotlight on Milton, who is kind of like the sweetest, more academic member of the crew. And he's also like an unlikely new friend to this group. He discovers that the janitor at school, Mr. Nakamura, is actually a former solo sumo wrestling champion in hiding, which is funny because I feel like if I heard that name, I would definitely be like, okay, you're not a sumo wrestler. When they actually go into the janitor's closet, it like confirms everything. And Milton's the one who kind of leads the way and gets the gang to rally to help him. Jack decides to help this ex-sumo wrestler have a comeback match to restore his honor and right in the dojo's humble ring. I feel like the message would be like, don't judge by appearances and make sure to stand up for other people, especially if they're going through like a rough time. I don't know, they do joke a lot about Nakamura being overweight, and then they put Jerry in a fat suit, so the way they go about body image issues is definitely not up to par with where we're at as a society now. But at the time, that just is how things were perceived. The kids underestimate Nakamura at first, but Milton is the one who really cares. His loyalty to this new guy is even sweeter when he himself tries to wrestle in it, because he's so thin and scrawny and like clearly doesn't stand a chance. The courage even inspires Nakamura to believe in himself again despite losing. He actually faces his old rival and wins the match with Milton and his friends cheering him on. The lesson lands perfectly. And it's just true, everybody deserves a second chance, and even a nerdy kid like Milton can make a difference in somebody's life by being a really true friend, which is definitely the honor code of the Bobby Wasabi dojo, and standing up for somebody when nobody else will. It introduced a little bit of Japanese culture, like sumo wrestling kind of falls in that category, as it blends it into high school life, and it definitely like hits this 2010s trend of celebrating cultures and kid shows, like in a very lighthearted way, like Pokemon or Avatar The Last Airbender. It just felt like a lot of Asian cultures were making its way to America, and even though we didn't really know a lot about it, or like how different countries express different things, like China versus Japan, like at the time we were just so interested in it, and I liked its impact on Western media. Also notable is how Milton, typically who is the weakest physically, gets a hero moment for being a good guy as opposed to just being a muscle. Like kindness can be strength, and that's something I want to take from this show. The guy who played Yoshi Nakamura is actually a real life large in charge actor known for playing tough guys, and this episode actually marks the first appearance of the recurring character Lonnie, who doesn't last super long but just stay in tune. He's this comedic side character who would pop up throughout time to time in this season, but it really didn't add much to the show. Like Hannah Montana, Jason Earl shines in the B plots, being mostly everything that's not the main character.
Open the gate, Lonnie! Not gonna happen, Roots! Oh yeah, and I made a few adjustments to the security system. Shocking.
And I like that we kind of see a little bit more of the falafel place and falafel Phil, because as we get through this show, this is where they spend most of their time, and it's a lot more funnier and engaging than when they're just hanging out in the courtyard. I don't know why, but it's like, it's really good at putting us in its universe. Episode 3 is Dummy Dancing, and it's more about vulnerability and actual friends. In this episode, a mysterious prankster is targeting the gang with a series of embarrassing pranks. But the guy's not really a mystery, it's Neville from iCarly.
Truman, if you'll excuse me, I have a date with Destiny.
Well, that'll be your first date ever.
The same actor comes in and he's playing this cynical, evil laughing kid. And it's hard to say much more in a way that other people haven't covered before, because this is just so obvious, and I'm not gonna just spend all my time pointing out the obvious. But I guess I just did spend 30 seconds doing that, so whatever, we'll move on. So they grease the cafeteria floor, and Milton actually goes sliding into the lockers, and then Jerry's hair gets dyed pink in the dojo shower, which is like, why do you guys have a shower there? I mean, maybe that's a normal thing in a dojo like that, but still funny. And the crew knows it's the school's resident jerk, Truman, who has access to the mall security cameras. But the twist is that they reveal Eddie is behind the pranks. One of their actual own, which is kind of a betrayal and definitely against the Wasabi Code. But it makes sense when we learn that he's actually being blackmailed by Truman, the snotty kid. So none of this is his actual doing. And his friends like really care about him and want to help him get out of it, which is really nice of them. And I love some of the jokes in this part where they're like comforting him. The whole blackmail thing is that Eddie was caught on tape dancing with a fake dummy, which I guess is so embarrassing. I don't know, I forget what it was like to be that embarrassed at that age, but I guess that would be an issue for me. But yeah, Eddie is so afraid of being embarrassed for enjoying dance that he actually ended up hurting his friends, making the episode more about vulnerability and peer pressure. The resolution comes when the gang actually support Eddie breaking into Truman's surveillance office to delete the embarrassing video of him, which is kind of cool. It's like this crime montage of them using their karate skills to be sleuths and sneak throughout Truman's father's office to get this tape. But it's cool. It shows that like their skills can come up in unexpected ways and they can use karate to solve their problems, which is a nice tie-in. They even managed to get a silly video of Truman freaking out to blackmail him back. But Jack does note that like this isn't to blackmail them, he just wants him to do what's right and delete the video. Like if both of them delete the video, everything will be good. And that kind of feels like a social media type storyline. Like I like that it feels relevant even today, that you can relate to somebody having like an embarrassing video or picture and getting that online or out there to a point where like you can't be seen again. Like this is definitely some good stakes for these guys to go through, especially as they're going throughout middle and high school. And I like that they take the high road and don't actually blackmail him back. And it's not like iCarly where it's them just getting revenge. Like the lesson is true friends accept you for who you are. And bullying only has power if you let shame or fear isolate you. And when you actually come together like with your friends, with the dojo, then you're a lot stronger, you're powerful, and there's nothing to be embarrassed about. The idea of being like secretly into something cool and fearing social media humiliation is insane. Digital respect and loyalty definitely needs to be a thing from now on as we're navigating the interweb, and showing that Eddie enjoys dancing, which is not traditionally macho, definitely pokes fun at the masculinity aspect of what we were going through at the time, and it shows that like he's not any less than one of the other guys. So I like that they poked at this whole gender norms thing. It definitely came to heart. Also, the title of the episode, Dummy Dancing, is a play on the movie Dirty Dancing, which is funny because obviously the mannequin dummy is used in the prank, which, oh, I wish I could have figured that out. The show actually does a lot of references to pop culture from the 80s and 90s, with young viewers' parents actually catching them, because I don't think at that age I knew what they were referencing. I guess the writers were definitely an older audience that did care about this stuff, but they were good enough to know what's fun to joke about and what's like more they should take seriously. Speaking of taking seriously, that's when we get to episode 4, Dojo Day Afternoon, where they actually fight for what's right in a further sense. It's another Save the Dojo episode, but this time, it's not a tournament that's a threat. It's the mall owner. It's Dojo Day Afternoon, and a rich businessman named Mr. Turner buys the mall and decides to turn the dojo into a parking lot. The Warriors attempt a diplomatic solution, like Rudy tries to appease Turner by having his gang befriend his spoiled son. His name's Arthur, and he's really snotty. Kind of reminds me of the villain Jimmy Neutron, Hughs Stretch. And this kid is like a nightmare. Like, he acts like he's a karate prodigy, but the second he can't be as good as the other people, he kind of takes out his ego on them, being like a horrible friend. And it's like harder and harder throughout this time for the Wasabi Warriors to accept him because they're just not giving them due respect. And Rudy, Jason Earls, is just telling him to deal with it. Obviously, he doesn't want the dojo to go away, but he's kind of feeding into it where he's like forcing these guys to deal with disrespect, which is totally like a adult child dynamic, especially in the 2010s, where like the adult doesn't really see from the kid's point of view and what they're trying to stand up for or believe in because they're too wrapped up in practicality or being an adult. And Arthur even picks a fight with Jack, who accidentally tosses him into a wall. And it takes things really far because Mr. Turner gives Rudy an ultimatum that either kick Jack out or the dojo's getting shut down, which is kind of like a lose-lose situation. I love when that happens in storytelling. Rudy, to his credit, ends up up not betraying Jack and starts a standoff. He has the Wasabi crew chain him inside the dojo to like protest this whole thing, which is so funny because clearly he's too terrified to actually go through with it.
Crazy! Rudy! It's only been 3 minutes.
But this is like the whole point of the Wasabi Warriors, like stand up for your values, stand up for your friends. Like the social emotional punch about principles and loyalties is great. Like the kids would rather lose their dojo than lose their friend, which is a powerful statement for a Disney sitcom. They demonstrate peaceful protest until obviously Arthur escalates things with a wrecking ball. And the image of Rudy chained to a pillar to protect what he loves is kind of oddly inspiring in like a really weird way. And seeing Jack heroically jump onto the moving crane and stop the destruction, even though it's cheesy with the green screen at certain moments, it's definitely inspiring too. He stops the spoiled kid before any real damage is done. With the courage and camaraderie, Mr. Turner really does believe that the dojo is doing a good job. So the moral's clear, stand up against bullies even if they sign your paycheck. For young viewers, that's like a really important lesson because authority figures like a mall owner or in a kid's world like maybe a school official might be wrong, and doing something about it takes bravery. The gang does the right thing together and they show unity in the face of injustice. The title is like a parody of Dojo Day Afternoon, which is a film about a high school stake hostage situation, and Kickin It kind of keeps it kid-friendly, but it does evoke the energy of sticking it to the man, especially for the generation growing up amid the Occupy Wall Street and various protests on the news. Seeing their favorite teens stage a protest of their own was timely and really nice to go into our new modern era with. Chaining yourself to what you believe to protect it is something noble and I really think is necessary to do up until this day. And I like how it lightly touches upon class differences, like Arthur is rich and entitled while the Wasabi Warriors are everyday kids. Yet integrity isn't something you can buy, and Jack's working class values win over Arthur's privilege. It's a satisfying message and it feels like it's still relevant today. Sterling Bauman is the name of the actor playing Arthur, and he was known from like that show Lost and other guest star TV roles, but it really went big with this whole wrecking ball situation, like saying that it was just an intimidation tactic, but then having it actually touch the dojo made the stakes so much higher. And for only being episode 4, I feel like the show isn't afraid to throw us in the conflict, which I'm really enjoying so far. Episode 5 is Swords and Magic, and it kind of took on that trope they were doing for a while, like LARPing. I think there was an episode about it on Jessie, and like it was live action role playing, like when you get dressed up in costumes and reenact something. I'm not sure if you guys have ever done that before. If you have, leave a message in the comments because I'm so curious how something like that actually goes. The whole Swords and Magic is an interesting territory to explore from Kickin It. Milton invites his friends to join him on his favorite hobby. Of course it's Milton, and they do it at the park. He's like so into it. He even shows up to school with the garbs and tricks Rudy into being like his servant by saying he's like just a jester, and he actually like becomes a part of the plot, which is funny because it's like, how else are we gonna get Rudy into these episodes? Initially, like Jack, Kim, Jerry, and Eddie think it's like a really embarrassing idea, and if they have like pretend swords, they'll become the laughing stock of the school. And Milton's kind of like feeling bad about that because obviously like it's something he cares about. True friends support each other's passions. The episode at its heart is about acceptance and empathy. Like after they ditch Milton, each of the gang remembers times that Milton had their back or did something uncool for them.
I love it. I'm gonna rock this new look.
Gil is kicking it in when Milton's in the heat of the LARP battle. Right when he feels abandoned, the rest of the Wasabi Warriors show up in full goofy costumes to fight by his side. And I wonder how they turned this around so quickly. Like, how'd they get these costumes? It's like an epic nerd solidarity moment. Kind of reminds me of the Big Bang Theory a little bit. And Rudy, who is Milton's initial ally, win the LARP war against the Dark Knights, which is making the lesson loud and clear. Real friendship isn't about like looking cool. It's about being there for your friend, even if it's embarrassing. But it's something you would definitely go through today. Like if there was something you were into that your friends didn't necessarily like I could see being on that other side, and it feels like kind of rejective. Like I don't want to feel rejected by my friends. I feel like it's a nod to nerd culture, like the fantasy games and Comic-Cons that were gaining visibility. Marvel Studios was up and running back then. And Kickin It is good at bringing that stuff to the Disney XD viewers, possibly validating all these young fans who liked Lord of the Rings and World of of Warcraft, it also handles the theme of like toxic coolness, the fear of not seeming cool, so you break your morals just to fit in. By showing the typically cool characters like Jack and Kim embracing their nerdy side, it aligns with that generational shift. Like, being a geek is something that's actually pretty fine, if anything admirable, something that I feel like people my generation actually believe, and maybe this show was part of it. In the end, the gang actually gets a lot of respect at school for their LARP victory, which is cool. That's like a lot of positive reinforcement that they could do it again, they could be themselves. And it's a nice inversion of expectations. Like, I like it when shows don't do things that you expect to happen. Oh, Disney crossover alert! The leader of the LARP team is actually Doug Brochu, Grady from Sunny with a Chance. If you haven't seen my Sunny with a Chance video, check it out. Rudy's enthusiasm for LARPing hints at Jason Earle's comedic range. Like, he's so good at committing to the bit. Like, even if he's just following a bunch of kids around in a forest dressed as a jester. And this is definitely a funny episode for Kim. I feel like I'm starting to see how quirky she is as opposed to serious, and she's getting a lot funnier as the show goes on too. Especially being the barbarian princess. Like, I think that's so funny that she's like a dork at heart. The next episode is 6, Road to Wasabi, and this is more about like worshiping an idol. Like, what do you get your sensei for his birthday? In this episode, Jack faces this dilemma when he forgets to get Rudy a present, and even Kim gifts Rudy an autographed photo of their idol, which is the movie star Bobby Wasabi, the guy the movie is literally named after. Not to be outdone, Jack swings for the fences and actually tracks down Bobby Wasabi himself, played by Joel McCrary,
Bobby Wasabi,
to make a surprise visit to Rudy's birthday party. It's like the ultimate gift, but it backfires because when he shows up, Rudy is so starstruck that he accidentally flips a celebrity on a table or the ground in excitement, and he doesn't even recognize him.
you don't think that I am Bobby Wasabi?
No, ma'am or sir, I do not.
This guy is like insulted immediately, and Rudy is so embarrassed, especially since, oh, I don't know, he fires him from working at the franchise. Jesus, episode 6, and the main character lost his job. What are we gonna do? The episode teaches a lesson about idols and priorities. Like, Jack wants to impress Rudy, maybe one-up Kim with a grand gesture, but in doing so, he's actually putting Rudy's livelihood at risk. It's like one of those things of karma where you don't do something for somebody out of the goodness of your heart and things backfire because of that. I like to believe that that stuff is real. After Rudy loses his job, Jack obviously feels awful, and the gang goes on a mission to Bobby Wasabi's mansion to convince the star to rehire Rudy. And I love the break into the house and just how they get through the gate. Like, I like that they're able to get karate in it in the most random of places. Through a lot of these funny mishaps, like the guard dogs and then some of the ninja stunts, they managed to show Bobby how much Rudy and the dojo mean to him. And Rudy, in the meantime, humbles himself by taking a job at the same mall's reptile store next to Lonnie, who was in a couple episodes before. And it's just so funny. Like, of course he ends up at the exact same strip mall that his last job was at. Like, I don't know if people actually stay that close. The heartwarming resolution is that Bobby Wasabi sees Rudy's genuine passion for the dojo, and then, I mean, I feel like he definitely sees the error of his own ways, but doesn't really admit it, and it reinstates him by the end. So, you know, I guess it's more about owning your mistakes and valuing people over pride. Jack's willingness to do anything to fix his mistake and Rudy's lack of bitterness despite losing his dojo both demonstrate humility that these characters have naturally. Rudy's pure fanboy joy definitely brings out a really fun side to him, especially since he meets his hero and assaults him. It reminds us that adults can be goofy and fans of things too. The episode pokes fun at this celebrity culture because Bobby Wasabi is definitely an out-of-touch diva. Probably how kids imagine big Hollywood stars now. Definitely a play on like Chuck Norris or Jackie Chan. For a generation raised on celebrity idols and social media followings, Kicking It gently suggests that even famous figures are human and that sometimes your heroes might disappoint you or you might disappoint them. But the sincerity is what really bridges the gaps. Also, seeing the kids venture into a Beverly Hills style mansion for an episode is definitely like a little caper film. Kind of reminds me of The Great Muppet Caper. Generationally, it's a reminder that the era's obsession was about going viral and impressing others. Like, the things that matter mattered to us at this point in time were so surface level. And Jack learning that meaningful gestures matter more than flashy ones is just very important. This guy, Bobby Wasabi, is going to become a recurring guest star because obviously they need him to be a part of it. You know, he was Baloo in Disney's animated Jungle Book spinoffs. This guy's actually a pretty good actor. Like, I definitely saw him as his own person, like, not just the character in the show. We get an early peek into Jack and Kim bonding when they're going throughout the mansion, which is very sweet. And they celebrate the victory together, which is kind of cute. Then we get to episode 7, All the Wrong Moves. And this one's kind of about loyalty. It brings Jerry into the focus when a flashy dance competition comes to the mall. So Jerry is like super confident in his swagger, and even though he's not super smart, he believes he could do anything. He signs the Wasabi Warriors up as a crew despite none of them actually knowing how to dance, and I don't know if you could actually put somebody in that position where they're a part of a competition without their consent, but it is funny and necessary for a sitcom plot. I feel like if this was a drama, that would be a stupid thing to be about. Realizing that they're actually really bad, Jerry is embarrassed, and then we see the guy Smooth, who's played by Rashawn Fagan from Shake It Up, is this leader of another reigning champion called the Step Brothers, and they're actually really good at dancing. Jerry craves the spotlight though and ditches his friends to join the rival crew.
Been working on it for a long time. I call it the Jerry.
How'd you come up with that?
Well, I'm Jerry, and I added the.
Because he cares more about winning than his friends. Which is, I mean, it makes sense. Like, you have to put him in that position so they can inevitably choose the right choice. Because this early on, obviously, it's not going to make a difference. When the competition actually happens, Jerry discovers that Smooth only wanted him to steal his signature dance move, and then benches him pretty early. This makes Jerry realize that he's been used, and he abandoned his friends for fake glory. And then he rejoins the Wasabi crew last minute, which is, of course, that's how it goes. That's always how it goes in these types of shows. Even though they're not the best dancers, they end up using some of their martial arts meets dance improvisation, which is kind of funny. And they perform together. It's like a really feel-good moment, and it definitely feels like a Disney XD version of a Disney Channel musical number. And it's kind of cool because it's definitely still choreography, and it's very artistic to see all the characters doing this. Like, I think they're great. Jerry finally apologizes, and the team forgives them. They even managed to win the crowd over. These messages about staying true and the Wasabi code are really coming into light, and I love how honorable it feels. By the end, Jerry's bond with his buddies are actually stronger for being tested. Having this whole group of mismatched like teenagers and having them not have a lot of history together makes the show a lot more genuine and interested in how they kind of connect with one another. Shows like America's Best Dance Crew were huge, and Shake It Up was definitely glamorized. So it's funny to see Kickin It try to join in on this with a really nice message. And the constant subtle touches on masculinity are really subtle but ever present, and I like how they don't make a huge deal out of it because it's just like Jerry wanting to be a winner and associating that with being a man until he's able to learn that making amends and admitting he was wrong is the real way to be a man. Apparently Rashawn Fagan was actually on Dancing with the Stars, which is crazy. It's definitely an in-joke for the Disney fans because you probably watched both channels. I don't know what's going on in this B-plot, but it's a lot about Rudy and some random other adult making an infomercial for a new product, and they're trying to sell it to people, and this doesn't feel like it has anything to do with the regular show, so I'm gonna have to keep moving on. But we do have to give Jason Earls credit. His physical comedy is actually really good. In episode 8, we have Ricky Weaver. It's kind of about pop star crushes and self-worth, and this guy is such a Justin Bieber knockoff. So it's about all these tween girls getting excited for the pop sensation Ricky Weaver to come to town, and specifically Kim is super excited. They even ask Kim to personally dance on the stage at his upcoming concert at the school, and she's like super starstruck. The guys are both excited for her, but also like kind of suspicious, and no surprise, Jack specifically. Like, of course he's going to be jealous of the way Kim looks at this guy. Like, he's supposed to be a heartthrob. This is like how I was with Nat Wolff when I was in 5th grade. He was my enemy. Jack's suspicions are confirmed when Ricky privately brags to Jack that his track record with girls is more important to him than like anything else. So he pretty much admits that Kim is his next fling, and obviously Jack is going to have a problem with that. And Jack has this classic dilemma that's seen in a lot of sitcoms. It's like, protect your friend from a predator without seeming jealous or overprotective, and it's definitely coming across across that way. The episode lesson revolves around self-worth and loyalty. Kim learns that even though Ricky is famous, it doesn't mean he's a good person. When Jack warns her that Ricky's a player, Kim initially thinks he's just jealous. Kind of like how we turn on each other pretty easily in the real world. Like, there's always a part of us that's like cynical and doesn't trust everything that comes our way. On the night of the concert, Ricky does indeed reveal that he is slimy. Kim realizes that Jack was looking out for her all along, and it reinforces the idea that true friends' concern is worth more than a celebrity's flattery. Her self-esteem takes a hit from the rejection, but her friends actually remind her that she deserves respect, and she even knocks this guy into the wall. Kim is to be dealt with. Kim is a warrior. Valuing oneself enough to not let fame or an external validation cloud your judgment is a really good premise for young viewers, and definitely in the Bieber fever era. A gentle nudge that your biggest crush is not always a good thing. I feel like generally many of us remember crushing on a celebrity as a teen, and the story takes that kind of relatable experience and adds the fantasy element of what if you met them and they liked you but were a jerk? It's essentially the Disney-fied cautionary tale of celebrity worship, which is something I'm always here for. It's cool. Like the boy band trope. It's really funny in Big Time Rush, and it's super funny here. I like how it's like kind of like a time capsule of early 2010s teen pop culture. The next episode is 9, Wax On, Wax Off, and it's definitely a homage to the Karate Kid specifically. It's a direct tip of the hat. Instead of Mr. Miyagi's classic car waxing lesson, we get a wacky plot involving a life-size statue of Bobby Wasabi himself, and it's sent to the dojo as a reward for winning the tournament. The catch is that there's a massive heat wave that's hitting the town, and the waxed statue starts to melt. This whole thing reminds me of like the I Beat the Heat episode of iCarly when it crossed over to multiple shows. It's kind of like Disney Channel's version of that, and it's such a specific thing to copy and paste, it feels a little more copycat than it's intended. The gang scrambles to keep their martial arts idol intact.
It's okay. I put him there. He's not alive.
And it's just like a frantic comedic episode with them trying air conditioning, fans, and even like hauling the statue to the mall's ice rink to save it from turning into a puddle of goo. So kind of like an episode on responsibility, like not sweating the small stuff. Largely like a comedic breather from all these overt messaging in the other episodes. Even though it's really subtle and pretty well done, I think it's nice to go to something lighter, like team responsibility. This statue was entrusted to them, and Rudy and the gang feel a duty bound to protect it. We learn that sometimes even your best efforts might fail, and the statue does melt quite a bit. But what matters is working together and not blaming each other when things go wrong. There's a mini lesson in entrepreneurship ethics in the B-plot when Kim and Milton turn the sweltering mall courtyard into a makeshift beach resort, which is funny because I don't really remember seeing a lot of the kids in the B-plots thus far, so it is fun to see them in more comedic versions. Of course, they get greedy and their successful business gets shut down, and they see that exploiting a situation for a profit can definitely backfire, so they dial back their scheming. Moral, money and panic shouldn't override doing what's right. The episode title is a reference to the wax on, wax off polishing from the movie, which I already said. And it's just a nice Easter egg, especially if you're watching the show with your parents, which none of us were because we were teens. It also kind of parodies how we like idolize figures literally in wax.
From his classic 1974 movie, Dojo of Wax.
Okay, so it's a dude made of wax.
And it reminds us that like people actually care about that stuff at the time. Like somebody could actually have a entire mold like that. I mean, it might be a stretch, but it's like whatever. The next is episode 10, the commercial. This is more about jealousy and staying humble. Sensei Rudy gets a shot at fame, and he's cast in a TV commercial for an appliance store. As it turns out, he's a natural actor, or so he thinks, and he lets the small taste of stardom go straight to his head. Kind of like that episode of SpongeBob when he was on a single commercial and he thought he was like the bee's knees at that point. Yeah, that's exactly what happens to Rudy here. He even hires Jerry to be his personal manager and agent in like the classic Hollywood fashion, which is so funny because obviously he's like the most absent-minded in the group. He's so funny pretending to be a manager. When it's actually time to film though, Rudy is suddenly getting the case of stage fright and panicking, and he chokes his audition.
Do that move you invented. The scissor roll out dragon tail kick. That'll shut him up.
Right. I will now demonstrate the scissor roll out dragon tail kick. That'll shut you up.
Jack decides to actually save the day and Rudy's pride by stepping in front of the camera and demonstrating how it's done. And he accidentally lands the lead role as the Pomegranate Man, which is the mascot of this product. And I love that Rudy is the one in this episode because he is just such a funny character and he does not deserve to be stuck in the B-plots. Even though he's jealous that Jack got his part, Jack feels guilty for outshining his sensei because he only really wanted Rudy to succeed, which highlights his respect and loyalty. When Rudy's able to swallow his pride, Jack even tries to give the role back. And even though it doesn't quite work out, the sentiment definitely is there. True friends do show up for each other, and even when it's like an adult and a kid, like you could still have mutual respect and like care for one another. Rudy learns that being a star isn't as easy as it looks, and he shouldn't have gotten too cocky too fast. And Jack learns that it's okay to let others have the spotlight, even if you accidentally steal it. You know, like I remember envious situations, especially like if you were part of the drama club or in theater. Like there was a lot of situations where getting a role or getting a position in something would actually come between you and your friends and make things really uncomfortable between you guys. Poking fun at the entertainment industry, which I think is always funny when they do it in shows. Sometimes shows do it a little bit too much, but I feel like this is just enough to keep us laughing. And Jack's overnight fame is just how unpredictable show business can be. For people who like dreamed of being on TV or even now YouTube famous, it's like a reality check. Like you could try all you want to do it, but sometimes it just takes a bunch of coincidences to end up in the place you really want to. It notes the absurdity of commercials and marketing, like Jack dressing up as a giant talking fruit, which is so funny. And the generational angle of how Kickin It portrays fame is like definitely saying it's not worth sacrificing friendships over. And I feel like it took away in our new TikTok era and YouTuber time our like immediate idolization and more like critique of them. And even though we cancel people a little too quickly, I feel like this is what made us like jump to something like that. Apparently this Pomegranate Man is a inside joke with the show's creators who has a relative in the produce business, and they actually did slip in a fruit themed hero, which is super funny. Milton's subplot in this is kind of worth mentioning. He has a baking assignment that goes awry, turning him into a crazed perfectionist chef who terrorizes the kitchen, which is such a really random angle to take. And he does like over the top rage comedy.
Oh, come on! You call yourself a chef? This looks like it belongs in the loo.
Is that good?
Having even like a meltdown, like one of those wacky stories you'd hear about on the Food Channel. I feel like it's just so random here though. I can't believe that a show about karate goes this far off the rails. The next episode is Kung Fu Coupe. It's kind of like a genre parody and about bravery. It's basically like a dream sequence episode. The setup is Jack falls asleep watching an old Bobby Wasabi Kung Fu movie and dreams the entire gang is in a 1970s disco era detective adventure. Something super unique for Disney XD and even Disney Channel. Like this was really cool, and it definitely allows the kung fu slinging to have a shine to it. And seeing all the characters playing outside of their original roles, like Kim being like a sassy nightclub singer named Snowflake Jones, is super ridiculous. And I don't know why Rudy is wearing an afro in this. It's insane. Milton takes on the role of like a funky informant named Milty Moondust, and I kind of really love that name. And Jerry is just a mustached petty crook. They'll groove to the disco beat while trying to solve a case of the missing necklace, and Jack ultimately uncovers that Chief Eddie, yep, even Eddie's in it, and is behind the crime. On the surface, it seems more like a homage and humor episode than a heavy lesson, but if we dig a little bit, I feel like the dream can be interpreted as Jack's subconscious working things out. He takes on the role of a detective, indicating his internalization of being like a problem solver. There's also like this element of trusting your instincts. Jack has to follow clues and then confront his real life friend as a villain, but it's pretty creative and fun. It reminds the viewers of like a 1970s kung fu cop movie and disco culture, which is so funny because none of us were born in that time and definitely not these kids. So like, I don't know who this was for, but I guess they just did that often. Like a lot of the writers always made nods to their old shows, and then when we grew up, we had our old shows, and now it's just all mixed up. Like, what are we referencing anymore, really? It's okay to be funny and silly sometimes though. That's what the episode taught me, even for a karate student.
You gonna play along, or is my partner here gonna have to throw the book at you?
I didn't bring my throwing book. I thought you were gonna bring yours.
And this is the first episode where I was like super conscious that this does not affect the season plot in any way. And it's just fun to have a campy episode. I don't know. The next one is episode 12, Boogie Nights, and it's a Halloween one. Everybody at the mall is getting ready for Halloween, and the Wasabi Warriors are gearing up for the annual Boo Stravaganza. In Boogie Nights, which is a parody of Boogie Nights, that old movie that I never saw, the gang plans to host a party. Of course, the Black Dragons intend on ruining the fun, and I like that we get to see them again. I really like rivalries between groups of people, like West Side Story, Romeo and Juliet, like that's always fun. Jack boasts that nothing scares him, he's fearless, which is definitely a common Halloween trope, a character being like, you can never scare me, and the whole episode is about them being scared, and then some twist at the end leads to them actually being scared. It's all the same. And we learn about Jack's secret phobia, which is clowns, which that kind of makes sense. I feel like that's fair. Those painted smiles are creepy. I personally would be scared too. And it's so funny because, like, of course you're good at karate and you can defend yourself, but that's something silly, that's dangerous. The dragons show up with a posse of evil clowns to terrorize Jack during the event, which makes him panic in front of everybody. I like a facing your fears type episode, and it's so fun to reference something that was like kind of relevant at the time. I'm not sure if you guys were in high school or college or whatever, but about 10 years ago, there was this big craze going on where people were dressing up as clowns and terrorizing towns. Like, I don't know what was going on in our culture at that time, but we were bored, weren't we? The episode serves as like this social emotional lesson in facing your fears. And even though Jack initially struggles to handle being confronted with his worst nightmare, his encouragement from his friends gives him the strength to fight back. And even in the episode, he's literally blindfolded, allowing him to trust his instincts.
Hey, you clowns! I'm the one you want! Come on!
Jack, you're talking to a palm tree.
Yes.
There was an episode of a show I used to watch called Shaolin Showdown, and they had a similar episode too. It was like each of the individual characters were scared of their worst nightmares, so they decided as characters to switch fears and actually take on each other's fears, which is very sweet. It definitely promotes the idea of community, and I really like that message, and I feel like this whole fear factor thing makes a lesson like that a lot more meaningful. The gang's solidarity reinforces that you do not have to face your fears alone, and this was all before the It movie revival too. In this subplot, which I was really disturbed by, we get Rudy again, which I'm impressed they even found a way to put him in this episode, because I feel like Halloween is just such an adultless thing, especially since he doesn't have a kid. Like, why would he be involved? He spends the night flirting with a mysterious woman in a cat costume.
This having a tail thing is kind of new to me.
Not in my family. We're born with them. But they usually fall off by age 5.
You are so funny.
I am so not kidding.
And then they find out later it was Jerry's mother. This twist sent like everybody laughing. I love sitcom humor like this, especially when it's like really awkward. And the fight choreography in this episode was actually amped up a lot. Like, fighting blindfolded was so cool. And the strobe lights in the background, the Halloween decorations, like definitely one of the best fights in season 1. Leo Howard's real life karate skills shine in these sequences, and I think he did a lot of his own stunts. This guy was even a black belt at age 8. Not the character, the actor. Lastly, this was the episode where we learn that Jack will openly admit a fear, which is a character moment that I think fans will appreciate. Episode 13 is a Clash of the Titans, and we bring back this Romeo and Juliet aspect, which is so unusual for a karate show, but I feel like it weirdly blends the genres a lot better. Like, imagine like West Side Story meets The Karate Kid. Like, it's a cool combo. Okay, so Milton falls head over heels for a new girl named Julie. She's in his chemistry class, and it's really sweet, except Julie just so happens to be the niece of Sensei Tai, which is this dastardly sensei of the Black Dragons. I love that stake. It's so cool to see something so high stakes for a character that's like just seemingly on the side. Like, now he gets a role in it.
Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to take a moment to harness my chi.
I'll do the same. I'm the king of the world! Yeah, whoa!
Like, just because they're rivals, we get a full-on Juliet and Romeo Dojo edition. Thank God we don't have the tragic ending, though. That would have been dark. Milton and Julie obviously decide their connection's stronger than the stupid feud and decide to continuously date. Meanwhile, the subplot is about Jerry and Eddie engaging in a rivalry of their own, which is a rap battle. They add a lot of lighthearted parallel about the competition, and it's just about taking things too far, but I feel like it takes away from the main A-plot and is a lot less interesting. But prejudice Togetherness and unity are a good storyline that I feel like they didn't get into necessarily yet. Breaking the rivalry is like something that takes a lot of humility, and the dojo's bad blood between these two individuals shouldn't go so far, especially since the nerdy underdog needs to get the girl. Like, that's sweet, that's supposed to happen. It takes like two separate tropes and kind of combines them. Sensei Tai's over-the-top reaction, like banning them from seeing each other, highlights how absurd grudges can be between groups, which it takes into our history and American culture, but you know, that's just the toxic part of us, isn't it? And it teaches kids that judging someone just because they're a part of a different team or clique or culture, it's just wrong. And in the end, Milton and Julie's puppy love triumphs over the objections. I really hope the next generation doesn't do this. Like, I hope they see this as a good lesson too. The unity in this show does a great job of showing why community is so much better than solo activity. Like, you could really work with your friends and do something great if you put your mind to it. For the Disney XD crowd, it's a gentle introduction to the idea that conflicts often persist for stupid reasons and individuals can choose to break the cycle. It's been done on literally every TV show, not just Disney Channel, not just Disney XD, but in all sitcoms. We have a little bit of this to an extent. Having family expectations versus personal feelings is definitely a subgenre that I feel like this would be encapsulated under, especially if you're like a kid with a strict family or you grew up with your parents being very controlling, staying away from other people. Like, that's something we dealt with growing up in Gen Z. Amidst all the karate kicks, there was a lot of room for a tender story about acceptance and young romance, which is why I miss TV shows being like 20 episodes long. Like, it's cool that we still have 7 more episodes to have fun, get around. Like, we don't need to just be progressing the story 24/7. And the show doesn't explicitly mention it, but just portraying an interracial teen couple as normal is a positive cultural statement in itself, especially in the 2010s. I feel like we were a little bit more prudish about it at the time than we'd like to admit. And when Milton got his first kiss, like, that was a big deal for his character development. Eddie and Jerry's rap battle definitely provides like a lot of laughs, and it shows off some like legit rap skills, showing that the actors do have like musical talent. But it doesn't shine as much as the A plot. Sorry guys. In episode 14, we have Badge of Honor, which is more about power trips and actual courage, where Milton finds himself on his own hero's journey. He accidentally foils a robbery at the mall's jewel store. Ooh, a crime episode. Something that the karate nature of it all is going to really thrive on. The security guard Joan is so impressed with Milton that she actually makes him the mall security deputy. Of course, we know how episodes like this go, when you give a kid power and then they take it to their head, and now he's patrolling the mall with a safety uniform and issuing citations for like literally everything, taking his role way too seriously. Like, I know SpongeBob did this once. His overzealous law enforcement is put to the test when a trio of real thieves break into the dojo and tie up Rudy. Woof, and it gets there too.
Yeah, they're cleaning us out.
You mean
Yes.
there?
Yes.
And you're in the middle of a...
Yes.
Suddenly, it's up to Milton, the wannabe cop, to defend his friends for real, which is great because obviously it's in a moment to make up for his power trip. With great power comes great responsibility. It's a superhero trope, and it's a trope in Kickin' It. It's played for laughs, but it definitely has a strong moral backbone, and it shows us how unprepared this guy actually is because of the power getting to his head. Respect is earned by deeds, not authority symbols. It's just a great lesson in not abusing power and staying humble, like something that I feel like today is really important when we look at the politics and everything going on in our country. Like, it's important to learn where this stuff stems from and that it's not too abnormal. Protecting others and helping others when needed is more important than ever. And the satire about this whole mall cop specifically reminds me of Paul Blart Mall Cop, which that was a couple years prior, but it made overeager security officers like a really funny idea. And Kickin' It taking that over is like really random, but I liked it. Ugh, and the security guard really shines in this episode. Like, she's not needed to make a big impact, but she really does. Like, almost mentoring Milton is so funny, and her improv background means like a lot of quips were ad-libbed.
Please take this badge back.
Wow, that was the pin. She's gonna bleed. I need some backup. Officer has a boo-boo.
So I feel like a lot of scripting was improv'd when they did this. In the B plot, Jack and Kim teach Rudy how to skateboard, and he confesses that like he's always wanted to learn, and that's kind of brief but sweet. And even though I'm more interested in Milton, I feel like it's necessary to get a plot like that every once in a while anyway. I definitely don't think that would have worked as an A plot, so might as well do it. In the end, he conquers a small ramp, and it's a victory for him. So congrats, guys. If you're an adult, your life's not over yet. So episode 15 is called The Great Escape, and the title pretty much covers it all. We're in for a jailbreak sort of episode. Jerry gets himself into some pretty hot water at school and pulls a prank involving a flaming backpack. Oh my gosh, very classic Jerry. I'm really liking Jerry so far. He's my favorite. Just his deadpan acting is so topical. The principal shows up and Milton ends up taking the blame to protect Jerry, since he's already on thin ice with detention. Milton's noble act lands him into Saturday detention alongside a rogue of tough kids. Kind of reminds me of the episode of The Breakfast Bunch from Victorious, which is a parody of The Breakfast Club, that 80s movie where all the characters are at the school. But this is a lot more tame, I would say. So Jerry feels guilty that Milton's missing a big family karate tournament because of a detention he didn't deserve. The gang hatches a plan to break Milton out of detention so he can compete in Jerry's place in the tournament. And actually, this is starting to remind me of an iCarly episode when one of them gets detention. They need to film iCarly, so they do it within detention. Oh gosh. Why can't teen shows just not copy off of each other? The plot is basically friends helping friends face consequences. Jerry learns valuable lesson in accountability, like his friend taking the fall, and Jerry needing to make up for that, like by orchestrating an escape caper. Milton, for his part, initially took the blame out of loyalty, showing that Kickin It actually emphasizes that these friends would do anything for each other. Like, the decisions they make seem to be about a reaction to caring for one another, unlike a show like Drake and Josh. Both literally put themselves in each other's shoes, and the lessons are more about making sacrifice and amends. If you mess up and a friend pays the price, you better go above and beyond to set things straight. And it's also not about taking friends' sacrifices lightly. Like, Jerry's growth is evident when he forgoes his entire desire to compete. For Disney XD, this was a chance to do a kid-friendly prison break story, essentially. It resonates because many teens feel trapped by a punishment or situation and fantasize about a clever way out, whether it's in school, working at a job, anyway. The teamwork and ingenuity in action is what drives this episode. It also touches upon the idea of doing time for the crime, which is not as prominent, but it's still like taking responsibility. Jerry was guilty and yet walked free until he couldn't take it anymore. The interplay sparks conversations in young viewers' mind about justice and fairness. Whether it's comedic or not, I feel like it still weaves its way into our lives. It's also a nod to how friend groups often cover for one another, that kind of loyalty to a pack type thing. And a lot of this episode has a really good full-on physical comedy. Like, Milton's over-the-top tough guy act in detention is just ridiculous, and I don't know if I were the teacher I would even entertain this idea, but they managed to work around it pretty well. There's also a funny side plot where Rudy babysits Phil's pet goat, Tootsie, and becomes like weirdly attached to it. It's super random, but Jason Earls is so funny and is able to like milk every laugh, especially when he does the hoof eating contest with the goat. Like, I can't believe it. Apparently the goat was not even a cooperative animal actor, leading to some improvised scenes that made the final cut when it nibbled on Jason Earl's clothes unexpectedly, that's actually kind of awesome to know. The next episode is 16, Dude, Where's My Sword? And it's one of those party gone wrong episodes, which has to happen in every teen sitcom. Teenagers plus no supervision, what could go wrong? In Dude, Where's My Sword, Rudy leaves town for a weekend road trip with Bobby Wasabi and Phil from Falafel Phil's. It's such an odd trio, but it's really funny that it's all about them trying to escape what they think society puts on them. Like, each of them wants to, like, they want to break free of their expectations. And Rudy actually gives the keys to the kids for the dojo, which is beyond me. That is such a liability. I don't know if that's like the worst thing Rudy's done, but it's definitely not helpful. The kids obviously sense the opportunity and decide to throw a party, but the small party spirals into a big rager. Surprise, surprise. During the chaos, Rudy's prized katana sword, which is like an heirloom of the dojo, gets stolen.
Rudy's priceless katana is gone. He is gonna kill us.
At least he won't be doing it with the sword.
Panic ensues as Jack, Kim, Milton, Eddie, and Jerry realize that this is the sword. And if they don't do it, trust is going to be shattered. The gang goes into overdrive to recover and replace the sword before Rudy returns. And the whole don't break your parents' vase at a home party story definitely is funny in dojo form. The social emotional kernel is about taking responsibility for your mistakes. Like, the gang collectively messes up by letting the party get out of hand through peer pressure or the desire to be cool, like a mismatch of priorities, and instead of pointing fingers, they band together to make it right. Initially, they consider deceiving Rudy with a replica sword, but obviously guilt from Jack makes them realize they need to come clean in the end. And it's a really nice moment because we remember that Jack is the moral compass, and he does a good job at embodying the Wasabi code. In the end, through some detective work and mildly unethical tactics, like confronting a pawn shop guy who had the sword, they retrieve the real katana just in time, and Rudy does not have to know. But they do know, and it's clear they feel the weight of this betrayal, which is good, because trust is hard to earn and easy to lose, which is like a really important moral. I've learned that time and time again in my life, and I definitely feel like these guys are picking it up now. The Warriors get lucky in fixing the error, but they definitely don't want to abuse freedom and trust anymore. It's a growing up lesson, and handling responsibility is not about letting fun devolve into recklessness. This is definitely like a rite of passage type episode in teenage storytelling, and Kickin' It frames it in like its own karate-centric way. Like, for the audience who may be entering their own adolescent phase of pushing boundaries, it's a little bit of wish fulfillment. And who wouldn't want to see that in a karate dojo? The title references Dude, Where's My Car, which is a 2000s stoner comedy, which again is a cheeky nod to the older crowd. I'm sure these writers were definitely not teenagers when they wrote it. Generationally, it acknowledges that even good kids, like the Wasabi crew, want to cut loose, and it doesn't vilify them for it. It just shows realistic consequences that something valuable could get damaged. More of like a relaxed moral stance in the 2010s compared to older, very special episodes. And I don't know if you noticed, but Kim actually was not in it that much. And even though she was missing a lot of episodes in season 2, this is season 1, and she was pretty present the whole time. She is in this one, like helping with the sword caper, but it's weird because it's like she doesn't come into a lot of the normal plots. All 5 main kids are working together to try to solve this problem as a collective. And the actor playing Bobby Wasabi is super funny in this episode because obviously he can't play his own role in a movie about him. Like, that just really sucks, and I feel bad for him. With Falafel Phil also down on his luck, I like seeing these 3 adult men get together, go on motorcycles, and adventure out into the distant land of a random bar. Rudy falling in love with this girl is like really sweet, and it's like cool to see this side of him because I can't think of a time we would ever see it again.
Carlotta.
Okay then, Carlotta.
So it's just nice while we have it. A later episode in the future season would actually call back to the sword mentioned in this episode, so it's kind of fun that like the continuity people can actually see this. So in Breaking Board, the gang is preparing for a speedboard breaking competition, which does that actually exist? Who knows? It just does in the Kickin' It universe, I guess. This is episode 17, and it's about Jack accidentally kicking Jerry in the ribs, landing Jerry in a hospital with a minor injury.
He's all right. He's just a little groggy. Jerry. It's Milton.
Stop it, slapping him. We gotta get him to a hospital.
Whew. And Jerry pretty much milks the hospital stay for all it's worth. I don't know how they managed to get Kim in the hospital. I don't know what a candy striper is, but apparently she's like the nurse. I feel like she's the one responsible.
And what exactly does a candy striper do?
I cheer up the patients, bring them flowers, and do everything I can to ignore what's in their bedpans.
Which doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why she's the one checking up on him like she's a child. Like, get a real nurse in here. And he's just using this whole thing to not go back to school. In the meantime, Milton and Eddie are wandering off into a maternity ward, and in straight out of a classic sitcom playbook, they accidentally mix up 2 babies when trying to calm them down, which is terrifying. Like, this is a lawsuit and a half on their part. But it's definitely like really wacky. Like, I feel like this could only be done on a Nickelodeon show, so the fact that Disney XD had the gall to put this on, that's beyond me. The deeper message is like kind of the guilt and forgiveness, because obviously Jack feels bad for hurting Jerry. Like, even if it was an accident, he's gone by the Wasabi code, and we know that he is a very trustworthy person. It shows that accidents happen and true friends aren't supposed to hold grudges, and we see this concern as like a proof of caring. Kim definitely shows shows compassion as she's working in the hospital, even though she's dealing with Jerry. I feel like it adds a lot to her character to know that she does care to do stuff like this, even though she announced it in the beginning of the episode, but whatever. Milton and Eddie realize the seriousness of caring for others, especially newborns, and the panic comes from a mistake that could affect a lot of people. By resolving it, they actually gain a little bit of maturity and relief because they're children. But it's cool that we get like a baby plot line because you can see a more nurturing side of these characters, all except for Jerry, of course. I feel like baby mix-ups are actually like more urban legends and soap operas, which kind of makes it funnier for a kid's comedy. God forbid this was like super real and actually based on a true story, but I don't think a show like Kickin' It would try to attempt to do that. Using this trope is kind of a nod how they often parody other genres or common TV scenarios. Like culturally, it touches on a lot of teenage issues, confronting something as alien to teenagers as like newborn babies. Reminds me a little bit of Rugrats. Like imagine these kids just picked up a bunch of Rugrats from the TV show. I don't know. In addition, Jack's accident with Jerry and his guilt scenario, I'm sure a lot of young athletes might relate to. Like if you're part of an extracurricular sport or something physical, I'm sure you can relate to accidentally like hurting somebody a little too much, or like maybe fighting got too far. Like that's the kind of issue we're dealing with, which I like that it touches upon that in this episode. When Jerry gets folded by the giant bed, oh my gosh, they better have gotten somebody else's legs here because that is impossibly hard to be folded like a chair like that. Like it's crazy. And the B plot in this does go a little too far. Falafel Phil is giving out a free food for life prize, and he's like intending on having his twin sister come in and win it, and then he doesn't have to actually give away the food for free. But Rudy ends up winning it. And of course, Falafel Phil cannot afford to do this, so he goes to try to kill him.
That vent almost fell on me. I could have been killed.
That would have been a shame. What with you winning all that free food for life and everything?
And it's pretty quick, like he gives him poison and it kills a plant, so you know that it's real.
Now you want me to eat it? Yeah. There's something weird going on here.
And Jason Earls picks up on it pretty quickly. It feels like one of those like Three Stooges based comedy bits because it's just so outlandish and almost unrealistic. Or at least I would hope it's unrealistic. But poor Rudy, like I feel like he definitely earned this and he was looking forward to it. Why couldn't he just get this? He ends up telling Falafel Phil that he's gonna go to his competitors, like the corn dog store, which actually freaks out Falafel Phil a lot.
I'm not eating at your place ever again. In fact, from now on, I'm having all my meals at Captain Corn Dogs.
Good! Finally! Captain Corn Dog? For that, I will kill you!
The craziest thing about this episode, though, is the fact that they used real babies in these scenes. Like, I think I saw a podcast recently that was like the actors talking about what it was like, and they were like really worried about the newborns, which I would be too. Apparently, they mostly slept through filming, which, oh my gosh. If you look closely, Milton and Eddie juggle the little guys, and you could tell that there's some creative editing. Like, no actual infants were tossed, obviously. I kind of like the end. It's like Kim turning on Jerry for pretending to be sick this whole time. She ends up seeing him dance, which means he's definitely not injured, but she acts like she got a bunch of doctors to perform surgery on him, and it's kind of terrifying. Like, that sounds like a good payback to me. And of course, Rudy ends up back at the hospital, the same way Jerry was. Like, I love that they're all just at the hospital at this point. So the next episode we have is called Reality Fights, and it's definitely a parody of reality television. It starts with Rudy announcing that Bobby Wasabi is coming over. Apparently, he's doing a new show called Wasabi Warrior, like a game show type setup. Kind of like in the realm of Survivor, the way they're going about it, because the characters can vote each other off. Like, it's really fun. I love when shows switch genres like this, because it's definitely fun to see characters talking to the camera. I like Milton talking to the camera a lot too. I think he's really funny. It's just like so of the time. Like, that's all we were watching was like different reality shows, and having them be such a close-knit group, the fact that this actually comes right between them is perfect. Like, that's something that drives reality shows, and it definitely does a good job in this realm and Kickin' It. It's so funny because it definitely gives me the American Ninja Warrior vibes. Like, the more it's like that, the more it's like Kickin' It. But the Survivor voting off thing is necessary to stir the pot. So It's hard to tell. With Rudy hosting this whole thing, though, he is so good at this. I really love Jason Earls, and I'll see him do anything at this point. The whole message is definitely like integrity over greed. Like at first, they really get into the competition spirit. Like they form alliances, they strategize in a really fun way, but then it starts to strain their friendship and actually become a little too real for them. It explores the idea of trust and honesty under pressure, and if people are actually willing to stand up for one another if it means they are in trouble. The message is true friends don't let a competition come between them. With the whole thing ending really positive, like they have a solidarity to their whole friend group, like it's important. When they vote off specifically Jack, that's like a really crazy moment because me as the audience, I'm like, that's the main character. Like, why did you vote him off so quickly? And to wonder how he's going to get payback is why I like watched the show till the end. Like, I like that they're putting these characters in scenarios that would not be normal. And at this age, like you really cared about competition, you know, like whether it was JV sports or like extracurriculars, like if two teenagers were in a room and could pick a different side, they would. Example, Team Edward and Team Jacob from Twilight. I'll let you guys sit with that. I like the confession cams, the dramatic eliminations. By 2012, we were all aware of like Survivor, The Amazing Race, even Wipeout, and Kicking It is definitely topical and meta, leaning into all that. With the laugh track, it's a little harder to stay in it, but I feel like it's funny enough. The episode slightly comments on how fake reality TV really can be, like how Rudy hams it up pretty much, and it could definitely tell the audiences that reality shows should be taken with a grain of salt. And I like that it's done in a kid's show because it's one thing to parody it in a adult show, but kids are watching this. They need to know that like, oh, it can be ridiculous, like utter nonsense when they do this. The challenges of doing like a show within a show episode were definitely like absurd, taking away from Kickin' It's normal premise with the Wasabi Warriors, but they do lean into some moral issues between them, and that's kind of what makes it more about Kickin' It itself. So this is by far the most interesting episode in the whole first season. I definitely wish it served as the season finale, but what can you do? Kickin' It in China, the ultimate episode. It raises the stakes and scale so much higher. So Jack is invited to compete in the Junior World Martial Arts Championships in China. It's the first time at an international stage, and guess who's representing China? His cousin Kai, which we don't really know it's his cousin, we just know that Jack is good enough to be invited out to China to face off against another warrior, and Rudy reminds him that this is actually a really big deal. Jack is very focused on not going alone because he really cares about his friends, so he exchanges his tickets to get everybody a chance to go to China with him. But there's a little bit of lore explained that Kai is the only person to have ever beaten Jack in a fight. So this is not just country pride, it's personal. They all head to China, and Rudy goes with them, determined to prove themselves. In the B plot, it's really weird though. All the extra characters, like Eddie, Jerry, Milton, they get wives. I don't even think that's how China works. They're like 14, 13-year-old kids, and they are assigned wives by this cab driver they met. All because of this really important fortune cookie that they lost one of the halves to. The sets of China can be a little bit cheesy at times, but honestly, looking back at it, for today's standards, it's actually pretty good. I mean, they were shooting in HD at the time, so I'm sure Disney XD was able to get it pretty well, but it's really cool looking at it and not being like taken out of it. They're on the Great Wall the whole time, which feels a little unrealistic, but what can you do? The inspirational message that Rudy gives to Jack is very touching. Like, I feel like the entire season, their relationship does kind of lead to a moment like this where something actually meaningful comes out of Rudy's mouth and Jack actually cares. The fact he breaks his arm is even scarier though, because we've never seen him have an injury before this. So to have an injury and face off against his cousin, like, gosh, there's just so much going on in this episode. It ends in this super cool fight on the wall where we get to see the actual skills of the main actor. And honestly, yeah, it's kind of cool. It's definitely about facing your past and sportsmanship. Like, at its core, Jack's story is about overcoming this fear, confronting his past. With Rudy's mentorship and remembering the Wasabi values, Jack approaches the fight with honor and not vengeance like Kai is. The outcome is that Jack presumably wins, or at least fights fair, and it shows that he can grow beyond who he was before. He even can help Kai up. Like, he's so strong that he can not only defeat Kai, but be strong enough to help him at the end. Eventually, everybody reunites at the end, end, and we kind of see how well everybody focuses together. Rudy tells the kids that it's all about spending time with each other, and that's the most important part of all of this. That's why we are kicking it. That's why this whole show exists, because it's about community, and I really do like that message. We get one more reference to the fact that the boys are full-on married when their wives actually show up, and they actually jump off the Great Wall at the end. Like, what a crazy way to go. It was definitely parodying martial arts tournaments like Kung Fu Panda would have, or the Great Wall. Like, the references are really cool. It showcases the Chinese culture super lightly though, like only glimpses of everything. Jack is an American kid in a foreign land, and martial arts is this universal language that connects him with others, even if it's a rival. It's definitely a positive global message, like having an Asian relative who's as good as, if not better than Jack, to note. At least it makes a partial homage to Asia, which is the origins of martial arts. It definitely feels like bigger in scope to change locations as to what we're used to, so I like that it takes Kickin' It to a whole new level. It almost feels like a Disney Channel show. They definitely didn't go overseas though. Like, I don't know what to tell you about that. The fights in this episode were definitely the highlight though. Leo versus Troy. One of the most elaborate bouts in season 1 with many different styles. The choreographers, wow, like I can't believe how much they got away with this. It definitely leans toward being more like Shaolin Kung Fu. That's a subtle detail that a lot of fans enjoyed. So episode 20 is called The Wrath of Swan. It's essentially their prom episode, and it's kind of about jealousy and honesty. Another Jack and Kim episode. Kim needs a date to the Swan Court Cotillion, and she has to choose somebody to present there at the dance. Naturally, she asks her best guy friend, Jack, because obviously they're close. But Jack, in a moment of, obliviousness or fear, turns her down, saying that he's not into those kind of formal things. Kim is kind of hurt, but she pretends like she's not and accepts an invitation from a new kid in the school, Brody, who seems charming and eager, but a little too eager. Jack soon discovers that Brody is actually a former student of the Black Dragons. Ooh, okay, I like that. And likely just taking Kim to embarrass her or recruit her back to the rival dojo. Jack and the gang must expose Brody's true colors to Kim before she potentially gets hurt or humiliated at the dance. The deeper meaning of this episode is like, don't take friends for granted, and honesty is key. I feel like it's a lot about Jack and Kim's unspoken feelings, more so than it is about the Black Dragon scheming. I feel like the emotional lesson is like Jack realizes that not being honest about his feelings toward Kim actually gets them all into worse predicaments. He clearly cares about her, but by not stepping up, he almost loses a chance to be there for her. Kim learns to value herself and not fall for anybody's act once the truth comes out, reaffirming the idea that one shouldn't ignore red flags just because the night of glam is worth it. Seeing them all spring into action when it matters the most is very sweet. Like, I like that the Wasabi Warriors are all on the same page all the time. In the end, Jack basically rescues Kim from a mean prank that Brody has planned in kind of a Carrie-like fashion. I'm not sure if you guys heard of Carrie, but it's that Stephen King novel where they bully Carrie so much and then drop pig's blood on her at the prom. I know it's not 100% like it, but it's similar. The audience gets the satisfying hint of romance when Jack, learning his lesson, gives Kim a proper dance and apology by the end. Honesty, loyalty, respect within friends. I feel like that's kind of what we're talking about here. Seeing Rudy's backstory when he was a kid trying to win one of these toy races with the trucks is hilarious for a B-plot and really doesn't have to do with the actual thing going on, but it's still a fun side mission, I would say. The ritual of like the teen dances and experienced with excitement and anxiety is really interesting, especially for like young viewers who really do go through this. It almost made me think about the prom more than the prom even happened, you know, like you go through your whole high school being like, oh, this is when this is gonna happen, and the social events are the real things you're counting down toward, especially if you have social anxiety like me. In real life, asking somebody to the dance is like a big deal. It's like you're trying to get approval from another person and really like have a good night with somebody you have a crush on. Or I guess some people can go with friends and make it work that way. Definitely not as common nowadays, or maybe I'm just too old to hear about high school life, but prom was was seriously a big deal. I like this title, Wrath of Swan, like the playful riff on the Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. It's one of those grown-up pop culture references that shows like Kickin It writers have fun making, and now us young adults can get a chuckle at this short burst of a reference that doesn't necessarily matter. We get another shot of the Black Dragons again in this episode, and it's really cool to see them consistently try, especially that supposedly 19-year-old kid.
It's amazing.
What's amazing is you're 19 and still in the 7th grade.
But he's really funny and kooky, and I kind of like that. Definitely too old for his age to be hanging out around these kids. Like, you're 19, boy. I do like the fancy attire, seeing like the tux.
You guys see that?
Hey, who's in there? Just two dudes trying to conserve water.
Saving the planet one potty at a time. Respect.
Oh, and the whole Rudy and Eddie thing actually does parallel the main story by showing Rudy's dedication to helping Eddie, reinforcing that mentorship angle. Olivia Holt actually got to show off some graceful dance moves, which is cool because she's a trained gymnast. And I like that she is able to incorporate it within the episode as a turning point in the Jack and Kim relationship. Like, that's kind of significant. And they were right, because it definitely set the stage for the more overt hints that come up on their relationship in season 2. For many, Wrath of Swan is a standout because it combines karate rivalries with this high school heartstrings story. So good job for Kickin It for intertwining stuff like that. I really like this. And then the season finale, we have Rowdy Rudy. It's about viral fame, role models, and full circle moments, being the final episode, of course. So they go out with a bam, literally a story about wrestling. It kicks off with a mild-mannered Rudy who lets his temper flare at the mall and they end up flipping a loudmouth professional wrestler during an argument. Oh my god, so inappropriate.
He shoved me and called me a pipsqueak.
Don't worry, Rudy. You're not alone. My pip squeaks too.
I'm not talking about my pip with you.
A bystander's video of it goes viral, and suddenly Rudy is an internet sensation. There's actually an episode about this on The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody where Mr. Mosby caught the winning home run ball, and then everybody in Boston hated him, and I kind of like how it's done here, leaning into the meme culture before it became a super popular thing, and obviously Rudy is a lot more humorous in this situation.
Yeah, Rudy, you're famous.
I know. Today, a woman asked me to sign her baby. Do you know how much that thing is worth now?
Jack unfortunately sees Rudy's aggression and thinks it's cool to emulate and picks a fight at school to be like Rudy. He lands himself into detention because of this, showing that like these viral moments can sometimes be a detriment to somebody's like mental health. When Rudy realizes his kid got in trouble from imitating him, he feels guilty for setting a bad example. But then meanwhile, of course, the wrestler wants to fight Rudy for payback. A public grudge match against Rudy and the wrestler, one-on-one in the rink. And I like how it's slightly out of karate, so that way Rudy isn't like perfect at it. And the responsibility of him being a role model and managing his anger is a really cool final episode. It focuses on consequences. This guy who's been a mentor figure learns he can make mistakes and needs to own up to them. And he has to tell Jack that he was wrong to lose his cool and fight out of anger. And that's not what a true martial artist or sensei does. Which kind of takes us back to the first episode of this whole season, where Rudy is super comfortable fighting people, and I feel like it's just a pacifist nightmare here. Like, it's so easy to make a fighting show about fighting, but you definitely have to highlight the consequences or things that can go wrong with stuff like that. To make things right, Rudy goes ahead with the wrestling match, but to demonstrate the consequences of his actions. In the rink, he gets a bit beaten because wrestling is not karate and refuses to resort to any dirty tactics.
Come on, Mondo! Whip his leg off and kick him with it!
I heard that, Jerry!
Sorry, Rudy.
Eventually, he wins by using skill rather than brute anger, showing Jack that the right way to fight is through discipline and honor. And Jack, having seen his sensei humble and prevail, learns a valuable lesson in self-control and heroism. The season ends with the dojo family closer, with everybody having grown.
Violence is never the answer.
Yeah!
Violence rocks! Violence is bad. It only leads to more violence.
Good! We love violence!
As a sweet side note, Kim helps Milton gather courage to kiss Julie in the episode's B-plot, which is also kind of interesting. It brings closure to the adorable arc and highlighting how the group can support one another through personal victories. The episode also did a good job at leaning into the trend of viral videos, memes. Like by 2012, YouTube stars were becoming more of a part of pop culture, with Rudy becoming an overnight meme and gathering millions of hits, which is funny we called it hits, is both funny and relevant more today than then. It subtly commented on how people can get swept up in internet fame and lose sight of themselves, accidentally giving out the wrong lessons to other people. Also, bringing in a wrestling character ties to the popularity of WWE around that time. Like, wrestling versus karate is such a clash of two pop culture fighting styles and flashy violence, and it resonated with a generation that was navigating the media landscape of influencers and questionable role models anyway, so it was kind of perfect. Choose your heroes wisely, kids, and that's the message, I would say. Fun fact, while the pro wrestler in the episode is fictional, the show later, in a subsequent season, had a cameo by a real WWE wrestler, Kofi Kingston. So this kind of foreshadows that whole wrestling bit. Jason Earls did a ton of physical prep for this finale, apparently, and even though he's not a tall guy, the giant wrestler being bigger than him is like almost comical, but it's cool to see him like momentarily take the spotlight, and it's satisfying payoff to see a goofy sensei actually throw down when needed. Overall, I feel like season 1 of Kickin' It is not just about karate moves and silly gags, it was about a group of underdogs, the Wasabi Warriors, trying to become a family and being taught a new generation of friendship, loyalty, and believing in yourself through an extracurricular activity. Looking back now, the nostalgia is strong, especially for somebody who hasn't seen the show. It definitely hit me differently as an adult. You realize its wholesome messages were both funny and relevant, that the comedy has a lot more depth to it than it needed to, even at the time. Like, you don't see Zeke and Luther tackling issues that become this morally convoluted, but then again, this is more attached to a karate person's courage. These characters inspired us in small but real ways. Like, one fan even called Kickin' It the GOAT Disney sitcom, and I wouldn't be surprised, especially looking back. Culturally, it still holds up too. Like, the jokes still land, and I was super surprised to be taken off guard by some really hilarious Rudy one-ers, and Jack was a lot more likable as a main character and didn't really get to a point of being annoying in any way, despite his ego, sometimes making him make irresponsible choices. And of course, Jerry, the funniest character, was really fun to watch in all those scenarios. I feel like Eddie is just this goofball that keeps trying to be true to himself and doesn't really know who to support, when to support them. And Kim is just trying to fit in with this group of guys, despite being one of the most masculine ones there, which is definitely flipping stereotypes on their heads in this show. It's definitely a time capsule of the early 2010s as opposed to the 2000s. Like, the fashion, the lingo, the obsession with boy bands and viral videos, like, it was very clear what mattered to us at this specific pocket of time. It portrayed a diverse friend group where everybody was equal, and the girl wasn't just the girl, and the nerd wasn't just a punching bag. And definitely tackled masculinity in a lot of ways that I was not expecting. And most of the time, our Wasabi Warriors often chose compassion over aggression, unless there was a fight that was absolutely necessary and they tried to weave it into the story to make it seem unavoidable, although I do think that there's never a reason to fight. I guess this show really isn't about that. Mainly, it's about belonging. The Bobby Wasabi Dojo was a refuge for misfits, a place where a kid can go if he didn't fit in elsewhere. Many of us watching this felt a little bit like an underdog ourselves, I feel like, so it was comforting and empowering to see these characters triumph as many times as they did. And you know how all of us are. We go to China sometimes, we jump off the Great Wall, we're so related to these guys. How does season 1 hold up today? It holds up remarkably well. Like, sure, some of the gags are corny in that Disney sitcom way, but the heart is real, and rewatching it, you'll definitely get a wave of the same optimism and confidence you got as a kid. It reminds us of a time where the biggest worry was passing a geometry test or impressing a crush at the school dance, and teaches us that good friends and determination can get you through about anything, and sometimes is a stronger asset than even karate. So here's to Jack, Kim, Milton, Jerry, Eddie, and Rudy, the Wasabi Warriors who kicked their way into our hearts. Season 1 set the stage, breaking boards and stereotypes and delivering wisdom with a side of whoopee cushion humor. Now remember, next time you guys see your sensei, don't forget to bow to him. Thank you guys so much for watching this extremely long retrospective, but I did cover a lot of episodes in a really short amount of time. I'm curious what you guys think about this. Did you enjoy an episode where we got to go through a Disney XD show? And is there any shows you want me to cover next? Make sure to comment below. And until next time, everybody, thank you guys so much much for watching the Johnny 2000 videos. It's beyond supportive, and I can't thank you enough. So until next time, I'll see you guys later.